Hello and a warm welcome to Federal's special program, Capital Beat. Now, as the 45 days long Maha Kumbh culminates, time now to assess about the big takeaways of this cultural event. Now, was this cultural event used for radicalizing the Hindus? Was that event projected to consolidate the Hindu Rashtra intentions? Can BJP really reap political benefits? All these are important questions, apart from the mismanagement and the stampede, all those reports which came out. But was this cultural event really used for radicalizing? That's going to be the moot point we'll be discussing. And joining me on the panel is Professor Ajay Gudavarthi, academician and author from Jawaharlal Nehru University. Thank you so much, Ajay, for joining. We have Pushparaj Deshpande, who's the author of the book called Bharat Jodo Yatra. He works closely with the India Alliance as well. Thank you, Pushparaj, for joining. And we have Sunita Aron, who's the author and consulting editor to HT Lucknow, and she's a veteran journalist as well. Thank you so much, Sunita ji, for joining. And I'll begin with you, Sunita ji, that would you really say that at the end of 45 days, when we look at the big takeaways of Maha Kumbh, and actually this was a cultural event which was used politically more than, from the religious lens, if you look at, and the spiritual angle. But can you really say that this event was used for radicalizing the Hindu population further?
Well, I think taking a dip in Ganga is a very old tradition. This is not the first time, and it's not only during Kumbh when people go to Ganga or to Yamuna and they take a dip in Holy River. So it's a very, very old tradition. People believe in it. And if you talk to rural people in rural areas, they'll talk about it more. But definitely, the manner in which it was done, the manner in which the entire thing was branded and marketed, it helped in endorsing those values. People who perhaps were not so religious or so spiritual somehow felt that, oh, so and so is going, X is going, Y is going, then A should also go. And when you go there, the atmosphere is created in such a manner. You have the bhajans, you have all the sadhus there talking about it, talking about scriptures, because this particular population doesn't ask questions. They just, it's the rat race. People are going, their faith prevails over their, or faith and beliefs prevails over their rational mind. And right now, after Ayodhya helped in I won't say radicalizing. I don't know if a majority community can be radicalized, but definitely it has helped in changing or maybe reviving their Hindu sentiments, that way. And now Kumbh. It used to be something where people used to go on their own. The government never went around advertising it in such a big manner. And as we were talking earlier, it is also to reconsolidate the Hindu vote bank. Generally, if you'll see people going to Ayodhya, going to temples, they also belong to the lower caste, the poor category, the backward caste. So it's basically reconsolidating, the vote bank which had demolished in 2024 elections because of the constitution and other issues, and Mayawati not being very active. So, and PDA being very active of Akhilesh Yadav. So it was demolished, and that is what had rattled the RSS, because they never thought if they want to make a Hindu Rashtra, they want a consolidation of 80% of Hindu votes. So that was there. So they have done all that. They have achieved quite a bit. But I somehow believe that politics, when you go to cast your vote, you don't remember what happened in 25 years. You won't remember your dip in Sangam. You'll remember the days, the issues of that day, and then you'll go and vote. But yes, somewhere right now, everybody is talking about Kumbh, and those who have not gone, like me, are being told that, hey, you haven't gone there. You have missed out such a good event, mega event. And it looks beautiful. Besides the mismanagement part, the place, after the lighting and everything, it looks beautiful. It really looks beautiful.
No, indeed. In fact, I went to Prayagraj about 2 weeks back, and then I did get to see the beautification which was done around that Kumbh area. But since we're talking about the Hindu sentiment, and as we have heard always BJP and the troll army saying Hindu khatre mein hai, and Ajay, I'm going to come to you now. When you see this huge congregation, a sea of people, almost like half the world has descended into a small city of Prayagraj. And here, can we really say that Hindu khatre mein hai, where everybody is taking a dip? I'm not getting into the mismanagement part or the stampede or the ugly reality where the numbers didn't come out, but we did have numbers of the huge crowd and the number of people taking a dip. But can we really say, when you look at these events, how long will BJP continue to say Hindu khatre mein hai, when they are going to capitalize on religious events and cultural events like these?
Yeah, I think now they are gradually dropping that idea of Hindu khatre mein hai. If you see some of the statement that Yogi Adityanath made, even in this context, now it's gradually about Muslim conversion or identification with Sanatan culture. You know, that interview he gave one of the media channels. He said that, you know, people are welcome from all faiths as long as they identify, because their ancestors were also Sanatani. There, many of them identify through their gotra, and they carry proudly the names of rishis in their gotra. But they should not come with kulsik mansikta. And those who come with that kind of mansikta, they will be taught a lesson. So now it's gradually about the other parallel discourse of Muslim assimilation, but with this overt threat that Muslims should I don't know what he meant by kulsik mansikta. What but does he mean by malified intention in this context? Obviously you have heard of what they have said about Muslim shops. There was also that ugly narrative of Muslim shops cannot be opened near Kumbh, and some of the Naga sadhus threatened Muslims. So the larger point, Neelu, really is that there are latent prejudices in both the communities. 1915, Mahatma Gandhi visited Kumbh. In his autobiography, Experiments with Truth, he has a whole chapter on his visit to Kumbh Mela, where he says that he's extremely disappointed when he reaches Kumbh Mela, because he finds all these latent social prejudices of Hindus not wanting to have Musalmani pani, those kinds of things. So what BJP RSS, one thing we have to understand is that what BJP RSS is doing is that those latent silent prejudices that exist across board between both the communities, prejudice that exist mutually, they are further aggravating those. We had a republic, we had a secular democrat. We precisely need a republic and a secular state precisely to overcome this social prejudice. That's the constitutional vision. Therefore, when we talk about 2024 constitutional vision is back, constitutional morality had a purchase, which should also mean that there are political forces like the Congress party and other secular parties willing to work on these latent social prejudices. That is the key point that we need to really discuss, that what BJP, RSS are doing is, on one end, create a militant Hindu image. That, no, you are only a Hindu if you are militant. Only Hindu if you are, this idea that, if you have not gone to Kumbh, then you are not a Hindu. If you have not, so they are also, as we know, collapsing the idea of state, religion, nation, leader, all bundled into one. So any kind of a criticism, even a criticism of legitimate questions of mismanagement, can be construed as being anti-national. So these are I think the larger issues one should really discuss, that Kumbh Mela should ideally, as an alternative, should be an occasion which is spiritual, which is where we have to introspect in terms of our social prejudices, how to overcome. That could have been what Kumbh Mela could have signified. But today it is about entrenching those prejudices. It is about a demonstrative class, it's about a demonstrative method, about demonstrating your social prejudices without fear. So how
Right.
far does that
Right.
really signify a spirituality is a question we should ask.
Right. But the question is that what kind of a spirituality do we want? how much of it should be mixed with science, how much should it be mixed with reality. And Pushpraj, I'll come to you now. Say, for example, the NGT report, not the NGT, I'm sorry, the Central Pollution Control Board report, which said that, there are huge amounts of that coliform bacteria, and the Ganga water is not safe for drinking, not safe for taking a dip. And then Yogi Adityanath coming up and saying that no, you can take the dip and you can even drink that water. Now, it's a given that faith defies all logic. But then what kind of a spirituality are we talking about? What kind of a Hindu sentiment are we talking about? Then blaming people that, oh, you've not taken a dip, so you are someone who should be ostracized from the society. Are we bringing in these kind of ideas through Kumbh, making people guilty? That, look, like Sunita was saying, that I'm at Lucknow but I haven't taken a dip. So there are several people who've not taken a dip, and then probably they will be told that you've committed a sin. Is that a kind of a society which is Yogi Adityanath looking at?
Hi Niluji, very good evening to you, our panelists and our viewers. I think you've asked a number of interconnected questions. Let me try to dissect each one of them as to the best of my ability. See, firstly, as Sunita ji briefly alluded to this, the Maha Kumbh is a deeply sacred cultural and historical tradition because, frankly speaking, in India, we give a lot of primacy to nirvana and moksha. The belief that Ganga, Saraswati, Shipra, Godavari have purifying powers to cleanse us of our sins has a very powerful pull, right? This is, of course, based on the belief from the Samudra Manthan that, 4 drops of Amrit fell at 4 different sites, which is why for centuries, this is not something that BJP has created. For centuries, Indians have, who have wanted to attain salvation or spiritual liberation, have flocked to Allahabad, Haridwar, Nashik, and Ujjain for the Kumbh, Ardha Kumbh, or Maha Kumbh. Now, the point is that given the logistical challenge of managing such large congregations, every government in independence has routinely overseen the preparations of the Kumbh or the Maha Kumbh. Now, in 1954, as Ajay sir said, Pandit Nehru personally oversaw the Maha Kumbh's preparations. Rajendra Prasad, that was the president then, he went and took a dip in the Kumbh. Nehru, of course, famously put his hand in the Kumbh. Now, one could argue that there has to be a strict separation between religion and state, as in the US and in Europe. But in India, we have always followed substantive secularism. We have not ever adhered to this formal secularism that the European parties follow. Now, but recognizing that faith is an intensely personal matter, a communal between the Atma and the Paramatma, no government before this government, the BJP government, has either resorted to performative religiosity or used religiosity to other communities, primarily Muslims, Christians, and Dalits, or milked religious traditions or cultural traditions for political capital, or failed to own up to their mistakes. Like in this case, the stampede that took lives. We still don't know the number of deaths that have actually taken place in the Kumbh. Mind you, I'm not absolving previous governments of their mistakes. I know for a fact that the BJP IT cell said, rightly so, that pilgrims died in 1954 as well. But the difference is, in 1954, the Congress government, Pandit Nehru himself, not only acknowledged it, but allowed a debate in parliament, took corrective measures, and then sought forgiveness from the nation. What did the NDA government do instead? It pointed fingers at the Congress, obfuscated the issue, and tried to absolve the sense of poor preparations. And that includes your question about coliform and fecal matter in this thing. They could have been better prepared for that. Now, this points to their not just irresponsibility, but also brazenness. Now, the third bigger problem for me, and this is what I think Professor Godavari was alluding to, the bigger problem is that the BJP consistently seeks to position itself as the sole proprietor of Hinduism. Now, I know that before, when the Kumbh started, the BJP IT cell started saying that Prime Minister Modi was the first and only Prime Minister to go to the Kumbh, ignoring that Pandit Nehru, Indira Gandhi, and other PMs also went to the Kumbh and took a dip. Secondly, they used this opportunity to attack and denigrate the Shankaracharya, who is one of the Hinduism's highest pontiffs. And over the last 11 years, the BJP, and I know, has tried to impose rigid prescriptions on food, clothing, modes of societal conduct. You pray only to this God, speak only in Hindi, marry only this in this creed or caste, and so on and so forth. And they have also twisted the normative basis of Hinduism. See, Hinduism has no ecclesial order, no absolutist establishment, no governing organization or binding holy book. It has many sampradayas which have their own akhadas, mutts, and ashrams. But they are now projecting subtly the Ayodhya temple as our India's Rashtriya temple, a national temple. And every other temple or akhada or ashram or mutt has been reduced to some kind of franchise of BJP's Hindu Vatican. And in doing this, what they have done is they've weaponized Hinduisms against minorities. Now, metaphysically, Niluji, and this is the last point I'll make, Hinduism has been a synthesis of diverse spiritual, cultural traditions in the Indian subcontinent. That in Lucknow, our previous panelists will allude to this. Even you're from Allahabad. We call this the Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb. Now, this metaphysical diversity allowed every Hindu, including me, to be polytheistic, monistic, agnostic, pantheistic, monotheistic, atheistic, or humanist. But the BJP has reduced Hinduism to the performative and the militant. You have to do this. What is a good Hindu? Who is a good Hindu? How a good Hindu has to behave is something that the BJP will prescribe. I mean, they have no business to do this. Similarly, Hinduism, I don't know. I have never, I mean, whatever, the Atharveda, the Upanishads, the Samveda, the Rig Veda, I've read all of these. I don't think Hinduism ever prescribes the demolition of mosques or mob lynchings as something integral to Hinduism. This is the problem with BJP. They are neither being Hindu, true Hindus, or being true to the various traditions that Hinduism prescribes, nor are they actually doing their duty as a responsible state that separates itself from religion. So my point is there are multiple problems that we need to unpack here. And the Kumbh Mela, what they have done, how they have misused it for their own benefits. And I'm telling you, I want to be very careful in saying that I am not denigrating the Kumbh or the tradition. That is something that no one wants to denigrate, and we all feel that pull. But for the BJP to misuse it for its own political ends is something that is not kosher. That is my limited point. Back to you, Niluji.
Right. And your last point, and I'm going to ask Sunita on that. That Sunita ji, do you think that BJP really can capitalize politically on the gains which they feel have got through Maha Kumbh? When it comes to Hindu consolidation of the voters, and of course, UP elections is not far off. 2027 Uttar Pradesh elections are scheduled. Then every year it's known that in Prayagraj, apart from the Kumbh and the Ardh Kumbh, you have a Maha Mela, which is an annual fair, which is like a mini version of Maha Kumbh, which happens every year. Now, given the scale and given the magnitude to which they've elevated this entire Maha Kumbh event, making it Prayagraj as a tourist city, they've now got all the infrastructure. So is there a danger now that these smaller religious cultural events which happen or which happened on a very small scale, now they will take it on a bigger scale just to, whip up frenzy for the 2027 elections?
Definitely, Nilu. And I think this is what they wanted to do, and they have achieved it partly. Look, when we are talking about 1954, even today, the protocols that were decided at that time, they are the ones which are followed even today. Although the population has grown, and this year we did marketing, we sent people to different states, inviting people to come, inviting VIPs to come, whereas there was a geo banning entry of VIPs in Kumbh area during that period. Now, social media works two ways, no? It works, you see the other one doing it and you get attracted to it. It's attraction. Now, what they had started, the first thing, I don't know why people missed it. And here, because there are people he's from Congress. Now, the first propaganda that started was that we don't go to our temples and look at Muslims collectively going at their mosque. This is how it all started. We all ignored. Then the Congress and the other opposition leaders were shy of displaying their Hindu side while they were willing to visit mosques. So that was the second thing. If you recall, during the temple movement, Rama temple movement, the crowds at Hindu temples increased considerably. We never used to see, it was something like, I think my parents, I saw them going to temples, but it was something very personal. Hindus never wore their religion on their sleeves, it was something very personal we did at home. But somewhere the politicians also gave an opportunity, the opposition also gave an opportunity to the BJP to encash on this Muslim part. Oh, you do rozas, you do iftar parties, you go to mosque for Eid celebrations, but when are you going to temples. Now we see Rahul going, now we see Akhilesh going, and they don't mind their pictures coming. I know that Mulayam Singh was a Hanuman Bhakt. He used to do it at home. He never talked about it during the temple movement that I'm a Hanuman Bhakt and all that stuff. So that part of leaders kept that part a very, very personal thing. Where and politically where it suited them, they used it. BJP, it suits them politically now. So they're doing what, in a way, the parties had earlier done. Now, this, as for, this is not going to end with today. This will continue, continue, continue. There'll be the social media cell will be very, very busy. Whatever mismanagement we are talking about, gradually, very positive stories will come so that people forget about that. They'll talk about, their
All the
own
negative stuff, all the negative
experiences.
stuff is already being deleted. All
And
the
then,
negative stuff is already being deleted.
and then
Yeah.
the judicial report has to come, that
Yes.
committee's report has to come, how he's going to play. And then they have a lot of plans, some masjids, they are they are being targeted. They'll be continuously till 2027. I think right now I see Modi going on a different trajectory, and Yogi going on a different one. But it could be a RSS plan, that one play soft, one play hard. This is how they have always done. So
Okay.
they're trying to win over Muslims while keeping their core voters together or consolidating it further. So 2027, now it is up to the alliance, and especially Akhilesh Yadav in Uttar Pradesh, how he consolidates his position in PTA. This time the constitution issue is not there. Last time it came very handy. Mayawati was not active. So, and Rahul and Akhilesh were, the bonhomie was very much at display. But last few months, although UP it remains, but India alliance seems to be, the talk is that it's collapsing in states and it's not working the way it should be doing. So much would depend on how the opposition will now play their cards. BJP is very clear that religion will remain a very, very big issue in their entire agenda.
But talking about the Hindu consciousness, Ajay, what has Maha Kumbh 2025 done as far as Hindu consciousness is concerned? Do we see some kind of a new reawakening to this Maha Kumbh? I mean, it has been BJP's focus, it has been BJP's agenda to talk about Hindu sentiment, but has Maha Kumbh further consolidated this Hindu consciousness?
Well, there has always been a sense of cultural unity in peninsular India. I mean, in fact, even Dr. Ambedkar refers to it, in his writings that, he raises this question that I don't understand how that this peninsular has a cultural unity, but there are caste differences, how they survive in spite of this kind of a cultural unity. So there is an undeniable fact that there is a certain cultural unity that prevails. I think the greater significant part is that these kinds of spectacles, that Hindu spectacles, are now no longer about caste Hindus. They are not merely Brahminical as we used to earlier think, but a large sections of so-called lower castes are now very much at the foreground, very actively taking part. For whether you take, the Kavadi Yatra, whether you take, Ganesh Chaturthi, whether you take Hanuman Jayanti, whether you take Maha Kumbh, these are gradually becoming symbols of one pan-Hindu sentiments and symbolism, but more importantly, symbolism of mass culture. That culture that is non-Brahminical, that is culture which is everyday culture that belongs to all castes. I think that's a very, very significant success, one should say, that BJP has achieved, and that will stay. That is where I think it is converting into political fortunes for BJP, that they have converted Hinduism into some kind of a mass culture, which of course they have done in through consolidating an anti-Muslim kind of a sentiment. But as you could see in 24, a constitutional discourse could very easily displace that lower caste. So I think the tension that will continue to run is that how far BJP will be able to use this kind of religious symbolism to hold Hindus of different castes together, as against the language of social justice? Will they really succeed for long in terms of this mass culture? I think one has to concede to them that they have to some extent de-Brahmanized Hinduism. That at one certain point, secular historians equated Hinduism only with Brahmanism. But today, I think there is a process of de-Brahmanization. I think a large-scale mass culture is walking into it, and people are able to strongly emotionally identify with these festivities.
But this de-Brahmanization of the Hindu sentiment, what you're talking about, Sunita, one quick question to you: that with this de-Brahmanization, do you think the BJP really can capitalize on the political, as far as the political dividends are concerned? Will BJP be able to capitalize on it, or will the opposition parties also stand a chance somewhere?
We always believe that the upper caste, the Brahmins and all, they are the ones who went to temples and they stopped untouchables from coming inside. But if you look at the lower caste, they are more religious than perhaps Brahmins. Their religious sentiments are very strong. And we should not forget that alongside they have the beneficiary schemes. They're also working on that. So it's a two-pronged strategy of the BJP that one, you satisfy their hunger, second, their hunger for religion. Both the hungers they are trying to take care of. So it's not just one thing that they are talking about. They're trying to talk, and then they're not talking about one god, okay, Ram only. They're talking about multiple gods which are worshipped in the country, across the country. It's not one god. There'll be some sections they go to Mathura, they believe in Krishna more. Some go to Kashi. In fact, if you look at the country, your Mathura, the Gujarat side, and your Delhi and that side goes to Mathura. They worship Krishna. And if you look at Kashi, the south comes to Kashi. And Ayodhya is basically a northern India thing. In a way, they cover all the across the country. They cover every part of it, and then you have people like Mamata Banerjee giving statements like Mrityu Kumbh. Now that is hurting sentiments of crores of people who struggled, who fought. Somehow they managed to take a
Mrityu, no, but when she says Mrityu Maha Kumbh, Sunita, does it not damage the prospects of the India alliance as well?
It does, but in any way, she's not there to help them even, na? She's not there to help them even. Because, one thing is there, like Akhilesh also has been, some leaders, Akhilesh and other leaders, have been talking about mismanagement. They themselves went and took a dip there because they knew that people believe in having a dip there. It's a matter of faith. So they kept on talking about mismanagement, which the BJP is twisting it as their statement against Kumbh. But what Mamata said, although what she meant was that there have been so many incidents, so there have been so many deaths, but you don't use words like Mrityu Mahakumbh. It's even I felt, okay, why should anybody describe it as, well, if you have similar accidents elsewhere, will you use that type of language? So these are the issues. If you have more such Mamata Banerjee statements, I'm very sure it will further consolidate them. So it's not religion alone. As I said, it's hunger for food and hunger for religion, both, which they're taking care of.
Right. And I'm glad Pushpraj is back, so I'll take the concluding comment from him. According to you, Maha Kumbh 2025, what has been the biggest takeaway for you?
I mean, lakhs of pilgrims, crores of pilgrims went as they have gone for every Kumbh and Ardh Kumbh and Maha Kumbh and prayed to the gods for salvation, spiritual liberation. This is a long tradition that has persisted in India. This shows the resilience of the Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb of Hinduism. And of course, our Indic traditions. So I think that continuity is something that persists, and no party or organization should take any kind of credit for this. This is, as I said in the beginning of the program, faith is between the Atma and the Paramatma. This is not, no organization or party is a takeover of my religion or the faith that I espouse. That's my first comment. The second thing is that My larger point is that, see, after the construction of Ayodhya temple and what they have been doing with the akhadas, how they have been denigrating Shankaracharya, I don't think this is a widely recognized phenomenon. But there is an intense churning going on within Hinduism and its disparate ecclesial orders, the Vaishnav and the Shaivite traditions, all the akhadas, the mutts, ashram. If you see what is happening now, the BJP and the RSS have now decided to junk and of course the BHP have decided to junk the akhadas, the mutts, and the ashrams, and of course many temple orders. This includes Jyotirlings and the other important sites. They have decided that it is high time for them to now take complete control of this. Now, this is a very, I think that philosophically and normatively, this is a very dangerous, dangerous constricting of Hinduism into a narrow set of rules and rigid prescriptions. I feel that there is, as I said, the Ganga Jamuni Tezi, both, I mean, if you want to call it something else, you call it Vasudev Kutumbakam. That tradition has an innate sensibility of live and let live. We have always been this thali of all cultural traditions. So that thali is going to sort of innately reject any kind of imposition of making a khichdi. We don't want a khichdi every day. We want thali. We want a vegetable. We want everything else different every day. So my sense is that this progressive Hindus versus rigid conservative far right Hindus is going to crystallize, and the BJP has decided to put all its eggs in the rigid conservative Hindu tradition. I think that this is, in a sense, although it may look in the short term, it may seem as if it will gain in Uttar Pradesh in 2027 and so on and so forth. In the long run, I feel that they are actually shooting themselves in the foot, because they are aligning themselves with the most rigid form of Hinduism and not this large flexible way of life that Hinduism is. And I remember, I want to end with Lohiya's quote. Lohiya famously talked about the fact that the Ganga Jamuni belt, the cow belt of India, as we famously call it, has always been Vaishnavite traditions. The BJP has always ruled the Vaishnavite traditions. Today, what they are doing is they are looking at the most extreme version of the Vaishnavite traditions. Right? They are not saying that. I mean, Bhagwan Ram and Bhagwan Krishna have so many different versions and avatars and so many different ways of being. The BJP is junking all of that. So they are honestly, and of course, they have never been on the fringes. They've never been in the Himalayas, in the northeast, in the south. The Shaivite traditions. What Oya said, that these fringes are the Shaivite traditions. Rahul Gandhi has sort of positioned himself as the fringe, as the Shaivite tradition. He is the one who says, "Main Shivji ka bhakt hu," and so on and so forth. So in a sense, the only place that the Congress and the India parties have to go is adopt, and I think they've started making this. Whether you can argue that this is not the right thing for them to do, because they are having to play the game on BJP's framework goalpost. But the fact is that while the BJP shrinks and narrows itself to the rigid form of Hinduism, the other parties are slowly beginning to occupy this. So I sense that the BJP in the long run, 10 years down the line, 5 years down the line, they are going to be a fringe group like the AFD in Germany, or like, many others, these right-wing fringe groups.
Oh, yeah.
Just a point I wanted to make.
Yes, Sunita.
I just wanted to tell you there was a small survey done in which I think students were covered in the age group of 18 to 25, something like that. And to their astonishment, they came to know that about 50% of them believed that Kumbh was organized for the first time by BJP. So this is the level of ignorance. Now we
Which
talk
survey
about
is this? Exactly, if you can share, which survey is this, ma'am?
I'll find out, because this is what a friend of mine had told me. I'll ask her to send it across to me. Now, why I'm trying to raise this is that the opposition has been talking about 1954 Kumbh because Nehru was there. They have not been talking about how many Kumbhs have been organized, where they have been organized. You know, the level of they
No, I
should
think
be
that because
clamoring
of, no, this point which you're mentioning is perhaps because of this mythical idea that, this Kumbh has come once in 144 years. Apparently, that's a reason that,
that was not counted. Even that was not counted. Now people are saying it is not correct, but even that was not counted. What I'm trying to say is that the way, the manner, the intensity with BJP goes around, even if they're talking lies, the way they go around hammering on it, opposition somehow, because they think if they talk against Kumbh, it will be, they'll be seen as anti-Hindu. No, don't talk against Kumbh, but at least put the facts before the people.
Absolutely, absolutely. So some new Hindu thoughts, I think, are being manufactured, and Kumbh is the latest example that once in 144 years there is a first Kumbh, and which is why I think Sunita was alluding to that survey which has been done. But Sunita, surely if you could share that survey, it's going to be
Definitely, I'll find out. And please, I would like to, whether, one should always say, okay, it could be, I came to know from a friend of mine, but like during my interaction also, I have seen that people are very, very ignorant about their religion, about a lot of things, and they tend to believe that BJP is promoting it for the first time. So that is there, but I'll find out about the survey with all due regards. In case it is wrong, please.
Okay, so we'll have to end it here. I think it was an enlightening discussion. Thank you so much, Sunita Aron, Professor Ajay Gudavarti, Pushpraj. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.